Some storms don't come to destroy a woman, they come to reveal the quiet power within her. A truly strong woman doesn't need to raise her voice to prove her worth. Her silence speaks the language of dignity. Her peace echoes louder than any shout ever could. In a world that often misunderstands softness for weakness, a spiritually grounded woman proves that divine strength wears grace like armor. Let me take you on a journey tonight, not into the noise of the world, but into the silence of strength. There's a kind of power that doesn't come from dominating others, but from mastering the self. The kind of strength that doesn't raise a fist, but raises the spirit. The kind of strength that doesn't scream to be seen, but is so rooted in purpose that it radiates in stillness. When a woman connects herself to that inner divinity, when she walks hand in hand with God, not just in prayer, but in every step, every decision, every breath, she becomes something the world cannot shake. Her silence isn't the absence of a voice, it's the presence of wisdom. She chooses peace not because she's afraid of battle, but because she's already victorious within. We live in a world that constantly tries to provoke reactions, steer emotions, and distract us from our inner clarity. But the strongest women don't play that game. They don't let external chaos become their internal condition. They are still, but not stagnant. They are quiet, but not passive. They are soft, but never weak. Because their source of strength is not the approval of the world. It is the presence of the divine. So today, I'm not here to tell you how to be louder. I'm here to remind you of the beauty of being centered. Not the kind of centered that comes from books or motivational slogans, but the kind that comes from sitting deeply with God in the solitude of your soul. Because that's where real power lives. And that's the strength the world is most afraid of, the kind that doesn't shout, but silences. She chooses silence over reaction, not because she's weak, but because she's wise. In a world where people rush to respond, where being the loudest voice is often mistaken for being the strongest one, she takes a different path. When she's provoked, she doesn't allow her emotions to explode like firecrackers in the sky. She doesn't raise her voice to make a point, because she understands something deeply spiritual. Real power is not in reacting, it is in responding with intention, or sometimes not responding at all. It's not that she doesn't feel anger, frustration, or injustice. She does. She feels everything deeply. But she has cultivated an inner relationship with the divine that guides her to process, pause, and pray, rather than scream, argue, or fight. This doesn't mean she allows others to walk all over her. This doesn't mean she tolerates disrespect. On the contrary, it means she knows how to protect her peace without letting her peace become a battlefield. She understands that not every comment deserves a comeback. Not every argument is worth the energy. She has nothing to prove to the world because she is already validated in the eyes of God. She draws her worth from a higher place. A place where silence is more powerful than noise, where dignity is more precious than dominance. Have you ever seen a river during a storm? The water may rage on the surface, but the deeper you go, the calmer it becomes. She lives in that depth. Her life may face storms. Her heart may be hurt by people's ignorance, betrayal, or judgment. But she doesn't live on the surface. She's rooted in depth, in presence, in purpose. She doesn't waste her breath explaining herself to those committed to misunderstanding her, because she knows some people are not to understand, but simply to argue. And in those moments, silence is not surrender, it is spiritual intelligence. Take, for example, The woman who works in a high-pressure corporate job. Her ideas are constantly challenged, her opinions often overlooked. One day, in a meeting, a colleague tries to discredit her suggestion. Everyone watches, expecting her to fight back, to defend, to raise her voice and reclaim the space. But she smiles, says nothing, and listens. A few minutes later, another person in the room rephrases her original idea, and it's now being celebrated. She simply nods, makes a note, and continues. At first glance, people think she's passive. But over time, they realize her silence is strategy. Her wisdom is patience. And her results speak louder than any words could. She doesn't waste energy reacting in the moment because she's playing a longer game. A game guided by inner clarity, not outer chaos. That kind of woman is dangerous to those who operate from ego. Because you can't control someone who doesn't react. You can't manipulate someone who's not desperate to prove a point. You can't provoke someone who's anchored in prayer and peace. That's the essence of spiritual strength. It's not loud, it's not flash. It's quiet, calm, and deeply rooted in the soul. It's not that she's afraid to speak, she just chooses her moments. And when she does speak, people listen. Because they've seen her strength in the moments she didn't. They've witnessed her grace under fire, her poise in chaos, her faith when things fell apart. You see, silence is not the absence of power. It is often the evidence of it. It is the pause that allows wisdom to rise. It is the stillness where clarity is born. And she has learned that her silence, guided by divine presence, can heal more than 1,000 arguments. She has faced criticism, gossip, assumptions, and blame. But instead of shouting back, she retreats into her inner temple where she meets God, not with complaints, but with surrender, and from that sacred space she returns, not louder but clearer, not angrier but wiser. This kind of strength cannot be taught in schools. It is learned through experience, through heartbreak, through betrayal, through moments when the only voice that comforted her was the quiet whisper of God in her heart saying, "Stay still, I am with you." That voice is her compass, that presence is her protector, and that silence is her power. So the next time you see a woman who walks away quietly, who chooses not to argue, who lets others think what they want while she continues to rise, know that you're witnessing a divine strength. A strength that doesn't react to the noise of the world, because it's tuned into the voice of the soul. A strength that doesn't need to shout, because it has already silenced the chaos within. Her calm is her crown, worn with grace and guided by spiritual alignment. She walks into a room, and there's no need for her to announce herself. Her presence says everything. It's not about designer clothes, status, or a loud voice. Her elegance is in the way she breathes. Her strength is in the way she holds herself together even when everything around her is falling apart. And it's not just outer composure. It's the calm that comes from deep inner alignment with the divine. She's not trying to impress the world. She's trying to stay true to her purpose, to her soul, to the voice of God that she hears in the silence of her own being. You see, many people live in reaction. They're constantly on edge, pulled in different directions by emotions, expectations, and opinions. But she has chosen a different path. Her life is not ruled by urgency, but by understanding. She doesn't rush to conclusions. She doesn't panic in pressure. She has made peace her lifestyle, not just a mood. And it's not because her life is easy or problem-free. No. It's because she has built a sacred relationship with God. And that relationship has become her emotional foundation. That's where her calm comes from. It's not natural, it's spiritual. Let me tell you about a woman who, by worldly standards, had every reason to break down. A single mother, working 2 jobs, raising children, dealing with judgmental eyes, financial uncertainty, and constant responsibilities. And yet, every morning, she would wake up before the sun, light a candle, sit in silence for a few moments, and speak to God. No matter how loud life got, that small window of silence was her sanctuary. She didn't cry about how unfair things were. She didn't scream about what others were not doing. She simply grounded herself in faith. And then she would begin her day with gentleness, with presence, with a heart full of surrender. People would often ask her, "How do you remain so calm?" And she would smile, not because she didn't have storms, but because she had learned how to carry peace inside her. She knew the secreting, the world doesn't get to decide her mood. Her peace isn't negotiable. It's a decision to choose stillness over struggle, presence over panic, surrender over stress. That's the kind of calm that only comes when a woman starts living not for approval, but for alignment with her inner truth. And let me be clear, this calm isn't passive. It's powerful. It's the kind of calm that lets her listen when everyone else is shouting. The kind of calm that lets her think clearly when others are overwhelmed. The kind of calm that lets her hold space for others even when she herself is hurting. Because calm is not about what's happening around you. It's about what you've cultivated within. And she has cultivated stillness like a garden. She has nurtured it, watered it with prayers, protected it from toxic thoughts. And now it blooms in every corner of her life. Have you ever noticed how a tree remains steady even when the winds blow hard? The branches may shake, but the roots stay grounded. That's how she lives. Her calm is not a mask, it's her roots. She doesn't fake composure. She lives from her center. And that center is not ambition or ego, it's spiritual clarity. She knows what matters, and more importantly, she knows what doesn't. So, when small things try to steal her peace, she simply smiles and walks on. She doesn't entertain drama because she's busy cultivating dharma. Her path, her duty, her truth. This is not to say she never gets upset. Of course she does. She's human. But she doesn't let those emotions define her. She processes, she breathes, she reflects, and she resets. She turns inward, towards God, not outward toward noise. Her calm becomes her healing, and her healing becomes her gift to the world. Others feel safe in her presence because her energy doesn't demand, it uplifts. She's not trying to win battles. She's winning hearts with her stillness. Imagine being around someone like that. Someone who doesn't react to every trigger. Someone who can listen without interrupting. Someone who can offer wisdom instead of judgment. That's what her calm brings. It becomes a light in other people's chaos. It becomes a mirror for those who are lost in noise. She inspires not because she speaks loudly, but because she lives deeply. She embodies, and it shows in the way she carries her day, speaks to others, treats herself. This calm is not inherited. It's created through years of spiritual discipline, emotional honesty, and quiet conversations with the divine. She has learned that the more she connects with God, the less she feels the need to control everything. She has stopped trying to fix everyone, prove herself, or respond to negativity. Instead, she focuses on showing up a pure heart. Because she knows when her intentions are aligned with God, her energy will speak for her. She walks away not to avoid confrontation, but to protect her peace. It takes immense strength to walk away, especially when every side inside you is begging to stay and argue, to prove a point, to make them understand. But the strong woman knows that not every fight is worth entering, and not every battle is meant to be won through words. There is a sacred silence that comes from choosing your peace over your pride. She has learned that walking away doesn't mean she is weak. It means she values her energy too much to waste it in places that drain her spirit. In our everyday lives, how often are we pulled into unnecessary chaos? A rude comment from someone at work, a misunderstanding with a loved one, a backhanded compliment from a so-called friend. The immediate urge is to respond, defend, clarify, but the truly strong woman, the one who walks closely with God, knows the art of spiritual economy. She doesn't spend her energy on situations that don't align with her soul. She's not running away from the problem. She's walking toward her peace. Take the example of women working in a busy office. One of her colleagues constantly criticizes her work in front of others. Every part of her wants to fire back, to expose their own flaws. But instead, she chooses to stay composed. She continues doing her work with excellence, her dignity intact. She knows her worth is not up for debate. Eventually, her calm professionalism gains more respect than any argument ever could. Her silence becomes her strength. And most importantly, she goes home with her heart at peace, her mind unburdened by unnecessary noise. We've been conditioned to believe that standing your ground means raising your voice. But there's a higher form of power in simply removing yourself from spaces that don't deserve your presence. She walks away not because she has nothing to say, but because she no longer needs to say it. Her self-respect is louder than any speech. Her peace is louder than any insult. She refuses to entertain the drama because she's too busy building her dharma, her truth, her journey, her alignment with the divine. When a woman starts valuing her peace more than her pride, everything changes. Her relationships become healthier, not because others change, but because she no longer reacts to every trigger. Her mind becomes quieter, not because problems disappear, but because she doesn't allow chaos to rent space in her soul. She creates emotional boundaries, not walls, but sacred lines that protect her inner sanctuary. She can love people deeply, yet still walk away when love starts to cost her peace. Think about a woman in a family setting where traditions and expectations often force her into roles she never chose. There's constant pressure to explain why she's taking a different path. Choosing a different career, marrying late, staying single, or not following the crowd. The pressure mounts, the gossip flows, and the opinions feel endless. But instead of arguing at every turn, she quietly walks away from what no longer serves her. Not with bitterness, but with grace. She's not trying to please the world. She's trying to remain honest with herself. And in doing so, she teaches everyone around her a lesson louder than words could convey. That peace is more precious than popularity. She doesn't need to shout to be heard. She doesn't need to win an argument to feel validated. She doesn't need to convince others of her decisions. She walks in peace because she walks with God. And when you are in tune with God, you realize that not everything requires your reaction. Some things require your silence. Some people need your absence. And some situations demand your exit. There's a beauty in this kind of strength. A beauty that cannot be faked. It radiates in the way she chooses not to participate in gossip, in the way she withdraws from toxic conversations, in the way she protects her mental space like a temple. Others may not understand it. They may call her cold, distant, or too quiet, but she's not living for their understanding. She's living for her own peace. And her peace is not fragile. It's not something that breaks under pressure. It's fortified by every moment she chose herself. Every moment she said no when it was easier to say yes. Every time she stepped back instead of stepping into chaos. Her walkaway is not a retreat, it is a declaration. A declaration that says, I choose peace over pride, purpose over pettiness, and God over ego. Her silence is filled with prayer, not pride, with clarity, not confusion. While the world may misinterpret her quietness as arrogance or indifference, those who truly understand the language of the soul know that her silence is sacred. She is not withholding words to seem superior. She is listening to something deeper. In the stillness of her being, she communes with God, seeking guidance before response, peace before performance. Being chosen. There is a still kind of strength in her silence that not only calms her own soil, but influences everyone who enters her presence. She doesn't speak impulsively because she doesn't need to. Her silence is her conversation with the divine, and in that spiritual space, she finds answers no argument could ever provide. In day-to-day life, silence is often mistaken. People think if you're not speaking, you must be unsure, afraid, or disengaged. But she knows better. When a friend tries to provoke her with harsh words, she stays still. Not out of weakness, but because she's processing with awareness. When her colleague at work throws blame her way to save face, she doesn't rush to defend herself. Instead, she takes a step back and reflects. In her silence, she is not planning revenge. She is praying for wisdom. She is asking, is this the right moment? Is this the right battle? Or is this just noise I don't need to carry within me? She trusts that the truth always finds its way to light. She doesn't carry the pressure of proving herself. She knows that ego shouts, but spirit listens. Pride wants to win, prayer wants to understand. And so, even when she's misjudged or misunderstood, she doesn't allow the noise to rob of her clarity. She waits, not out of indecision, but because she believes in divine timing. When the time is right, she speaks. And when she does, every word is deliberate, aligned, and impactful. Think of the woman who is in a relationship where communication has started to break down. Her partner expects her to fight, to shout, to engage in the same reactive patterns. But she doesn't. She withdraws, not because she doesn't care, but because she needs to listen to herself first. She needs to sit in silence and reflect before speaking. In those moments, she closes her eyes, takes a deep breath, and lets her thoughts rise and settle like waves. She talks to God before she talks to her partner. She chooses to understand what she's feeling before expressing it, so that when she finally speaks, it's not a storm of blame, it's a river of truth, calm, clear, and deeply rooted in respect. Her silence is not cold, it is conscious. And because it is conscious, it brings her closer to clarity. She doesn't allow emotions to explode recklessly. She has trained herself to pause, to pray, and to process. Because the truth is, once something is said, it cannot be unsaid. And she refuses to use her words as weapons. She'd rather let her silence carry the weight of her wisdom than allow her voice to be hijacked by temporary emotions. This does not mean she suppresses her feelings. No, she honors them. She feels them deeply. But she lets them breathe in her silence, not suffocate in noise. She writes in her journal. She goes for a walk. She lights a candle. She sits by the window with a cup of tea and lets the stillness speak. And in those moments, she doesn't feel alone. She feels accompanied by the presence of something higher. Something that helps her see beyond her pain, her ego, and her assumptions. She connects with that still voice inside her, the voice of God, and that voice reminds her who she truly is. She knows there is a difference between silent suffering and sacred silence. She doesn't stay silent to avoid conflict, but to approach it with wisdom. She doesn't keep quiet to be agreeable, but to be intentional. When she finally chooses to speak, her words come not from pride, but from perspective, not from confusion, but from clarity. That is what makes her different. That is what makes her powerful. The world may overlook this kind of woman. She won't always be the loudest in the room. She won't always be the first to speak. But her presence lingers. Her silence teaches. Her calm becomes a mirror for those who are always rushing to react. She slows down time, not because she can, but because she knows how important it is to respond with love and not just logic. She is not here to win debates. She is here to win peace. She is not here to echo the noise. She is here to deepen the silence. Her silence is not empty. It is full of faith, full of reflection, full of God's presence. And in that fullness, she finds everything she needs to navigate this world with both strength and grace.